I just finished my round one game about 20 minutes ago, and here I am doing the recap. Um, Before I get into the game, I will say I'm really tired, so I might keep this a bit more brief than usual. But it was a really crazy game, and I think there's a lot of things to learn from this game, and I'm still trying to wrap my mind around what happened. So let's get into it. I played GM Alexandr Predke, who's the third seed in the tournament, almost a super GM, FIDE rating of 2692. And if you saw the previous video, you know that my game plan was to play a London. And before the game, I did some more general London preparation. I was expecting him to try and surprise me in some way. And he played a line that I actually didn't look at before the game, which is c5 and queen b6. And this is a line that actually Agad has like a popular video on, the so-called anti-London. But this is a line that I've played many times before and I'm prepared for. Played the move knight a3 with idea that if queen takes b2, I can play knight b5. And I think there's lines where white can even like force a draw, which maybe would be nice against a player rated several hundred points higher than me. The other idea of knight a3 is that if black plays a6, preventing knight b5, then I have knight c4, which attacks the queen and defends b2. And we got a similar version of this. In the game, he played d6, knight c4, queen c7, knight f3, g6. And around here, I had some like weird memory pop into my mind from the time that I was teaching Alexandra Botez the London. And I'm gonna have to dig up the video to see if I had shown her this position. But there's an idea here that I wanted to play, but I couldn't remember if this was a position or not. But the idea is to play a very quick e4. And I'll just toggle engine analysis to show. And it looks actually to be playable. And the point is after takes queen e2, there's alignment on the e-file, and if the knight moves, then there's knight takes d6, which is crushing for white. So black would have to play f5 here, and I considered this briefly during the game, but I just didn't have any preparation in it or any memory of what I had looked at. But apparently g4 and the position gets crazy, and maybe this is something I can prepare for the future if I want to have a much sharper position from early on. But instead of going into the craziness, I decided to stay solid, and after g6, just play bishop e2. And next few moves are very standard. We both complete development. Now b5. And I should note that I could have played a4 to prevent b5, and maybe I should have. But I allowed b5 with the idea that after what happened in the game, black ends up playing a6. I have the move here a4, an attempt to try and undermine the queenside pawns. And I'd be very happy if black takes, I take back, and this a pawn is kind of a long-term weakness on the half-open file. There'd be ideas of queen a1. But in hindsight, after I played a4, black played b4, and I realized that maybe this wasn't the best transformation for me, because it's very difficult for me to play c3 now, and d4 ends up becoming somewhat of a liability, even though it's a defended center pawn. It's just hard to get my pawns in a harmonious way on the queen side. And my original intention when I played a4 was to meet b4 with a5 to try and artificially isolate this pawn. But I decided not to go for this because after knight c6, I thought my a pawn could be weak, and it's very easy to defend the b pawn for black. So instead, I went for a more solid play, rook e1, and brought my bishop out. And we did some dancing after knight a5, bishop d3, bishop e7, queen e2, e6. I think this was all like very normal. We were just both kind of gradually improving. We're both very solid too. And then after rook fc8, I actually didn't quite know what to do here. And I haven't analyzed with the engine yet, so uh, I'm sure I probably had a better approach to what I did in the game. What I ended up playing was rook ec1 and knight f1, but this felt like somewhat of a waste of time, and black was able to get some more activity. So I'm real quick gonna check here and just see what the engine wants. Engine says it's very close to equal. H4 did not cross my mind because black has h5. But maybe even, yeah, black has other alternatives too. Yeah, maybe it's already a little bit unpleasant for white. So it's just hard to find a move with a clear plan. So let me just show what happened in the game. Rook ec1, knight f1. My intention was to maneuver the knight to e3, which I did. And I'm offering the trade. If knight takes knight, I'd be very happy to take back with f-pawn, solidify the d-pawn, and then probably get the rook to the half-open f-file. Instead, my opponent played knight e7, avoiding the trade, and I think this turned out to be like a really annoying move because now black has the idea of taking and then winning the d-pawn. And the d-pawn isn't so easy to defend. I can't play c3 now because knight b3. So I had to resort to using tactics to defend the pawn. And I play the move rook d1 here. I'm going to disable engine analysis until I actually need it. So the point of rook d1 was that if black takes and snags the pawn, I think there's a few reasonable moves for white. There'd be bishop takes g6 for one, winning back the pawn, hitting this and this. And yeah, this is probably just better for white. So yeah, he didn't take on f3, but instead played knight f5. And here the position transforms a bit, and I had a decision to make because, of course, the d-pawn is now hit twice. I was pretty sure I had to take on f5. I spent a bit of time deciding whether to take with the knight or with the bishop. For a while, I was thinking about just knight takes, but then I realized that after pawn takes, my bishop is just really restricted. And I just didn't see a clear follow-up in this position. So I thought bishop takes would just be an easier position to play for white, because that way the pawn is defended by the rook. And even though I can see the bishop pair, it leads to some interesting imbalances. So he takes back with e-pawn. I improve my bishop, rook e8. And now I play a very double-edged move. And I played this move knowing it's probably very risky, but I thought it also offers me some interesting chances. Move is d5. And this is a sacrifice, allowing bishop takes b2. Played rook b1, bishop c3. And when I played d5, I saw that this position was likely to come. And I went through with my original intention is rook d3, and yeah, black plays rook c8, and now rook takes c3. So the whole intention was to sack the exchange, remove black's dark squared bishop, and get a position where the dark squares are very weak on the king side for black. Unfortunately, the concrete lines, I don't know if they work for white, as we'll see in the game. Because what happened is pawn takes rook, rook b4. And around here I was beginning to feel optimistic, thinking that, okay, I have this idea with potential rook lifts, and I thought these pieces are very much sidelined. But black has a really nice resource here, which I thought was at first not playable, but as we'll see, it leads to a very interesting line as bishop takes d5. Now, of course, it's a pin, and looks like black just won a pawn. It's now activating the bishop. But now I have knight takes d5. And I had seen this coming from a distance, but I guess I didn't realize that it could just be losing for white. As we'll see what happens, rook takes e2. I win back the queen, and I got two minor pieces for rook now, because I sacked the exchange, but then black sacked a piece. But after rook c2, it's not clear if I can stop the pawn. And I went into this thinking that, okay, there's a lot of chances for counterplay. I played the move bishop takes d6, and I was still feeling optimistic, thinking, okay, bishop e5 is coming, I'm going to have knight f6, and it seems like black might end up getting in a mating net. But in this position, my opponent played a really nice prophylactic move, which I just overlooked, is pawn f6. Not rushing with moving the rook and trying to promote the pawn, but rather preventing my main source of counterplay. And after f6, I had started getting pretty low on time. I was falling, I think falling below 5 minutes. And I realized that I'm in big trouble here, given that this pawn is very hard to stop. And if pretty much the only way to stop it is to sacrifice material, which would likely lead to a losing ending. So I tried to stir up some counterplay here with bishop e7, attacking f6. But I think from here on out, my opponent played just very cleanly, starting with rook d2. This is another move I overlooked, but a very nice move, because if I takes, and now d1 is coming, and if rook b1, there is rook c1. So there's all these promotion tactics when the pawn is so close to queening. Yeah, so I took on f6, king g8, and now I sacked on c3. I didn't quite see any reasonable alternative. What did I want to play? I wanted to play something like knight b6, but then the problem is just c2, and yeah, even though both rooks are hanging, the pawn is just going to queen next move, and I can only take one rook at a time. So I sack on c3, and at this point I had maybe a minute left to my opponent's 10 minutes, and there was a 30-second increment, so I was able to survive on the increment for a bit longer. But at this point, I'm down the exchange, and yeah, my opponent played just really clean chess to simplify. It still looks like there's some counter chances, and maybe if this were like a bullet game online, I would have some hope. But as we'll see, after rook c2 and then rook b2, I'm getting massacred on the second rank. And yeah, we got to this position, and I had some hallucination here. Originally, I was going to play g4, thinking, oh, I'm so clever, threatening g5, king h5, rook h7 mate. But then I realized, oh, black just has mate in one. So I didn't play g4, and at this point, I realized it's just completely lost. I gave a check, got the knight to g5, but it was just a formality at this point. And yeah, no stalemate tricks even, because I have passed a pawn, and yeah, I'm just getting mated very soon. So I threw in the towel here, and yeah, that was game one. I don't know what my losing mistake was, but I think overall it was a very instructive game, and like very well played game from my opponent. I want to go back and just check to see if I had any chances after I sacked the exchange. If we go, yeah, after rook d3 and rook c8, let's see. Was I just much worse? Okay, rook c3, rook b4, yeah, bishop d5. Yeah, during the game it looked interesting, but I guess white just doesn't have anything here. And if I go back even further, any alternative? No, it just looks like I got outplayed. Even after knight f5. Okay, engine wants knight takes f5. E takes f5, and then bishop f4. But yeah, it always felt like I was just a little bit under pressure, and my opponent was just in control the whole game. So kudos to my opponent. And I guess it's a matter of trying to rebound for round two. Um, yeah, I'm gonna get some food. I'm kind of hungry and kind of tired too. I'm still trying to overcome jet lag. But I hope people enjoyed this game. Hope people enjoy the analysis. I'm probably not going to edit this much. I might just put the whole rough cut to YouTube, especially because there's two games tomorrow. The next round is at 10 a.m. UAE time. And then there's another game at 6 p.m. So sleep and food are my top priorities right now. So I'll see you guys in the future. Stay tuned for more chess.